Good morning, everybody. Happy first day of spring. I know we've been waiting for this for a while, so that's always awesome. Today, I just would like to share with you how you can reuse your back leftover layers of your napkins to make like glassine faux, if you will, bags and little envelopes. If you stay with me to the end of the video, I'll share a couple of tips that I've learned dealing with the rips if you happen to get them while trying this technique, and also how to get rid of some stickiness if you choose to use Mod Podge instead of glue. Let me put these out of the way. So right quick, I'll share with you how I do this. This is just a board. Actually, it's off of a wallpaper book, and I just covered it with this wax paper. It's freezer wax, so wrapping paper. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. I actually had cut 2 of these so I can show you. So we'll deal with one. This was a full napkin, and I just cut it down the middle, and I'm going to leave these intact because when I get these glued, then I'm going to fold them and make a bag out of it, and then I'll cut it apart once it's already glued together, and then I'll have a double-sided bag. This is just a normal napkin. I did peel away the 2 back layers, which I'll show you in a minute what I did, or this one actually had 1, but what I did with it. So as we're creating waste. So the first one, this is just an old Mod Podge tube, and I actually diluted it some glue. I'm going to move you a hair just so the video can see. Sorry. Oop. And I added, I don't know if you can see it, but I added water in there to thin it down, Elmer's glue, to thin it down just a hair. Not a whole bunch, but enough to where, see, it's very kind of pliable, but it's not too runny. And I just I left this napkin here so that I can kind of gauge where I need to be. And you just really give a good coat on this bottom. And make sure, tip, that you have your wax side up so that you can remove it easier. And I go above where I think the napkin's going to be, and on the outside. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that as we get further along. I have a thing with waste, so as I play with these napkins and I end up having all this waste, you decide, well, what in the world? I do not mind wrinkles. I'm kind of a grungy look, and the old primitive kind of style. I thought I would use these Easter napkins because Easter is right around the corner. But if you do not like having wrinkles in your stuff, then, you know, you would take your time and you would glue and then kind of lay it and push your brush and glue it down. So once I have that done, then carefully, you don't want to overwork the napkin because that's where your rips come in. But I just kind of take it in the same section so that I get it all covered. And the glue kind of turns anything that can be clear or transparent into see-through, which gives it that glossy. Now with this Elmer's glue, it gives a completely different texture than what the Mod Podge would give it. So Mod Podge gives it more of a thicker vellum type feel, and this actually gives it more of a grainier kind of crackly rice paper. So once I have it all covered, I leave it like that and let it dry. So if you're impatient, you can always hit it with your heat tool. Careful because you'll get bubbles in it. Or another trick is do it at nighttime before you go to bed. Now this is some other homemade glue, if you will. It's Elmer's glue. I threw in some Just Coffee, and you can really see the brownness of it. And this will actually age, give your napkin an aged look, and you'll see that in a minute. So again, I'm just going to apply it really heavy right here for my base coating. And I like this colored because you can see where you're getting it and where you've left it and how much it's kind of laying. It makes it a little bit easier for me anyway. And then again, lay your napkin down. Oh, that one. Get a hair, see if I can pull it. There. Hair more crinkled than what I was wanting. Once you played with your glue down there, you don't really have too much give other than it ripping. So then once that's down, I then cover it again because you really want to seal it and give it that, give it pliability, if that's a word. Make it pliable so that when you're folding and cutting, it holds well. So yeah, it takes quite a bit, but it's a cheap way of doing it, and it does, like I said, reuse the leftovers. So here we go. They're covered. So what I would do now is, well, I would throw it in bring out my heat tool and heat it up so I could move forward, but for our crafting time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and move it aside. I did a couple already to share with you. My lid won't go in. Oh, my plastics. Maybe I need the right lid for the right tub. Okay, so I'm just going to move these out of the way so they can dry. And then I'll show you what the layers look like. So here's the bunny that I played with, and then these are the back layers. So with these, what I did was the exact same thing. Once they dried, I was able to peel them right up off of the paper. It's given some kind of torn edge rips, but I don't necessarily care about that because this is the overhang of the glue. Now the overhang of the glue helps that when you're pulling it off your wax paper or whatever you're laying it on, it it tends to rip that glue versus ripping your napkin. Whoop, I can see I'm completely out of screen. I apologize for that. So what I did then is, now that I have my napkin, you can then manipulate it any way that you want. If you want a glassine bag, you can fold your ends over, you can cut them. I found that if there's too much overhang in this area, then it makes it darker. If you can see here, it makes it darker than if you remove some of it. So that's all personal preference on how you want to do that. But a very easy way to do that is kind of line it up, get it as square as you possibly can. And then I see I have a little flower down here with an egg, and I don't want to lose that in my fold. So I'm just going to kind of fold it like so. Give it a good bend. Looks pretty good to me. I'll trim this off with scissors. But then once you open it, I would take and cut right on this bottom line on the outside. This just helps to get rid of some of that extra bulk that binds everything up. So just the two corners. On that one, and then on this one. And then when you put it back together, depending on how you want it, it'd be like so. At this time, you can, like I said, you can trim over this overhang. We'll go ahead and glue that one. Any glue works. The one that I did earlier, I used the tacky glue and it worked just fine. So I start on the inner edge because that's what I want to make sure that that's sealed well. And then the outer edge on this one. And depending on your taste and your preference, you can always square this up. We'll go ahead and put a line of bead here. Cut off the raggedy edges if you don't like that grungy, torn, distressed look. You know, and make it really to suit your taste, however or whatever that is. Then when you fold that back, you can see the glue through it now, but when it dries clear, and you won't even be able to see that. And then fold up this bottom piece. I missed a piece there. Like so. Okay. So we have the start of our little bag. And then I have some of these zigzaggy scissors. And they don't necessarily work the best on paper, but I found that they work just fine on this. So if you want to get a nice edge, or you're like me and don't use these often because they don't cut. Well, now as I say that, I'm hung up. But they tend to cut just fine on this glue napkin. So not the squares, but hopefully you get the gist of it. This one is it's kind of dark and muted. It looks old and grungy, but you can add more distressed ink to these. And really, if you weren't to use this one here, I used the coffee glue, which gave it the dark color. But if you wanted it light and really cheerfully, and you could just do it as is, which would give you this look. So this is the look of the third or second layer in this envelope case. It's very white, very clear, see-through. Actually, this is the other half of this envelope that I made. It's very see-through. and it stamps. You can stamp on it, you can ink on it. I don't know if you can see. This one I actually took blue. Hold it up under there. And distressed it really well. And then trimmed out the corners in it. So however you want to play with that. But to make that quick envelope, I just kind of eyeballed it, folded it up where I wanted it. Took my corner rounder, which this kind of surprised me. I didn't realize that it would round the corners as well as it does, but this stuff works great. And you can fold it up and bend it and whatever. So hopefully this will give you some tips and hints on what to do with your leftover napkins. I did want to say that the napkins that have 3 layers, the very second layer, the one that's right behind the printed one, most of the time it has a lighter print image than what is on the front cover. But if you do this technique on that, it completely changes the coloring look. So I did one on a red and green Christmas one, and it turned out to be like turquoise and pink. It was really cool. So it was fun to play around with those. So the tips that I wanted to share with you as I was playing with this, first off, this is a sheet that I have coffee dyed on of the same freezer paper. It did not work good. So my napkins was sticking onto all these little coffee specks, and that's how I figured that I would say, well, okay, so now it's ripped. How do we fix it? It's not ruined. Or is it? So remembering that this is just glue on a very fine napkin, I took and once I was peeling it and I got to a point where it ripped, I'm like, shoot. Well, I continued to get whatever else off of here that wasn't stuck, and then did the best I could without ripping the rest of it. Let's see if we can poke a hole in here and I'll show you. So here I got a hole. So once I got it up like that, now this is the piece, and of course it was right in the middle of my picture, but I just took my glue, I get my brush here, I just took my glue and I just went right back over the top of it. So same glue that I used to adhere it, I just went right back over the top of it. It softened. See, it's already sticking again. It softened that napkin up, and then I was able to essentially patch it, like just put a patch in there, and you can't even tell that the napkin was ripped. So there are ways of saving it, which worked out really well. And second off, if you choose to use Mod Podge to do this method, which you absolutely can, it gives it a different texture, not as crunchy as a feel, and you get that sticky wax, that sticky feeling off of that Mod Podge. I just take a candle that I have and I just rub it. I rub it onto your project, so your envelope, your bag, whatever it is that you're using these for, and this wax, just a quick wax rub removes that stickiness. And another thing that I found that these work very well for are tags. So it's a nice back layer if you were to make these up to give it another dimension of texture. So please comment below if you have any helpful tips to add, if you've done this or that you found that there's a better way of doing it. Any comments would be awesome. And also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. And if you hit the bell, you will get notifications on my upcoming videos. I have a couple other of how-to videos in there, which is making your own wax seals that was on the envelope, and some sliders, and a couple of cool projects that I've been trying to play with and get figured out. So go ahead and have a look at those if you're interested. And again, thank you for crafting with me today. And I hope everybody enjoys their first day of spring. It's beautiful here, blue sky. I think we're calling for 60. So yay. All right, thank you.